Hey guys, what's going on? Aaron here. So the price of Bitcoin has been hovering around 103K for over a week. So I'm going to go over a lot, including taking a look at some charts, some drawdowns, Bitcoin dominance, the price of Bitcoin, of course, what's going on with the fear and greed index, also taking a look at the entire market. But before I do that, and actually I'm going to go over some videos as well, talking about different people, what they think is going to happen with the price of Bitcoin. I first want to mention, if you guys are thinking about going to Bitcoin 2025, I plan on being there, and it is May 27th to May 29th. So that is just over a week away in Las Vegas, and I do have a link below where you're going to get 10% off if you want to pick up a ticket. So if you want to meet me, you want to say hey, and you've been on the fence about going, and if you want to use my link, that would be awesome. I'll include that for you guys below. So starting out here, Mike Novogratz. Let's hear what he has to say.
Now it looks like we'll take out 106, 107, 108 and make the next leg to 130, 150. And at that point, you're in price discovery. I keep thinking gold's a $22 trillion asset and crypto's a $2 trillion asset. And at one point, you're going to see crypto equal gold.
All right, so that's Mike Novogratz saying that crypto is going to, specifically Bitcoin, is going to hit the market cap of gold. That would be a simple 10x from here. So well over $1 million. So I want to get to what CZ is saying, what's happening on the ground, because he is talking to countries that are trying to get Bitcoin. But first I want to touch on this. Bitcoin dominance. So this has actually come up quite a bit from its low. And that's why we have seen a lot of altcoins over the last week right here pull back. So this is altcoins over the last week. We're seeing a lot of red, but taking a look for the month, it's basically all green in the top 100. So that's what happens. You know, Bitcoin dominance can come back up, altcoins can go down, and unfortunately, that's just what happens. Now, there are scenarios that Bitcoin dominance can go up and altcoins can still go up in value. And I do think that will happen. We did see that back in 2021. Bitcoin and altcoins went up in terms of US dollars, so that's not out of the question in the future. And taking a look at the fear and greed index, 66 is actually not that bad. And we've been in this level of greed when Bitcoin was $10,000 back in 2020. We've been in this level when Bitcoin was $20,000, right? So it's pretty amazing that we're not in extreme greed, and I think this is pretty bullish. We're not in extreme greed when Bitcoin is so close to an all-time high. So I want to touch on Bitcoin's year-to-date ROI in just a moment, and also what Donald Trump said about cutting rates, because he is essentially saying, hey, Powell, you got to cut rates. I first want to touch on what CZ said about what's going on the ground.
With one of the world's largest economy holding Bitcoin now, or making a crypto reserve, other countries are forced to do it because the later you do it, the more expensive your crypto will be.
So because the US has a strategic reserve and we're going to be getting a lot more, other countries are forced to do it. So this is what's happening behind the scenes.
We are talking with many countries advising them how to set up the crypto strategic reserve. And also, like, if you very simple stuff or very basic fundamental stuff like world wallet solutions to use.
He's talking to countries that are interested in setting up what the US has, and ultimately doing probably what more than the US has right now, which is actively buying more Bitcoin. So that's what's happening on the ground level. And this is all happening in the background, guys. So current price action for Bitcoin has been pretty boring. I mean, again, we've been at 103 or around this range for quite a while. Over 7 days, we've been over $100,000. But people are getting antsy, and especially those that hold a lot of altcoins, because again, it's like, cool, we had a good month, but we had a crappy week, as we're seeing here. And here is Pantera Capital CEO saying that holding on to gold is thinking like a pharaoh. And let me just play this for you guys.
The U.S. has 11 million years of workers' wages buried in a stone pyramid in Kentucky in gold. That's obviously very antiquated. That's what the pharaohs did 40 centuries ago. I think that'll be transferred into crypto, Bitcoin.
So that's supposedly over $600 billion. And he thinks that will be rolled over into purchasing Bitcoin. We'll see. And this last video is pretty interesting. So Pascal St. Jean says that money is flowing into Bitcoin, not ETH necessarily or altcoins, because institutions can really understand the value proposition of Bitcoin. Let's take a look.
No one's surprised, but surprised at the same time that Bitcoin dominates this cycle compared to everything else, because this is more institutional capital coming into this space. And Bitcoin has overcome a lot of the things to potentially be deemed an asset class like gold or other things. It has hedging mechanisms. It has different wrappers. It's a little bit easier to understand. It's a digital gold for a digital age. Whereas everything else, when we talk about the concept of a governance token or a utility token, it's a little harder for institutions to wrap their minds against what exactly am I owning? Am I owning the rights to future, basically fees from a decentralized exchange? No, you're owning the right to a vote on the protocol. That's still something they haven't wrapped their minds into.
So I agree with what he's saying. And that brings me to this, which I shared in a previous video, showing the change in Bitcoin ownership in 2025. So institutions, businesses, right? These Bitcoin holding companies, they're the ones that are buying Bitcoin. Individuals like yourself, like myself, individuals are the ones that are selling Bitcoin, which is sad because I think eventually Bitcoin is going to hit the market cap of gold. Bitcoin will be over $1 million eventually. And I think a lot of people are just impatient, or they need the money, or for whatever reason, they just want to sell, which is fine. But again, we're seeing Bitcoin flowing out of individuals' hands and into businesses, ETFs, funds, and governments. And what he's saying is true. It's like buying Ethereum is a lot more complicated to understand. It's harder to do a quick elevator pitch on, hey, this is why you should buy Solana or Ethereum or Sui or Dogecoin, right? Now, there are ETFs to buy these things, so institutions can buy altcoins, but it's just a harder sell to, say, the board of directors or to investors right now. Whereas Bitcoin, it's simple, digital gold. And that's why, again, we're seeing Bitcoin dominance pretty much go up ever since the bottom right here around the end of 2022 when FTX collapsed. Bitcoin dominance went from a low of around 60%. Now we're at 63%. It hit a high in 2020, end of 2020 at around 73%. It's impossible to know what'll happen or the timeline. I do think we will still see an altcoin season. A lot of you guys may disagree. I do think we will still see something like this where we see this massive decline in Bitcoin dominance, but it may take a while. It may take lowering interest rates. And that actually brings me right here. So Donald Trump said earlier yesterday, the consensus of almost everybody is that, quote, the Fed should cut rates sooner rather than later. Too Late Powell, a man legendary for being too late, will probably blow it again, but who knows? So this whole too late Powell, I asked Grok what he means by that. So supposedly the Fed was slow to hike rates in 21 and 22 as inflation surged, and some argue it's not slow to cut inflation as inflation cools, like what Trump is saying now. You need to cut rates. Powell's data-dependent approach prioritizes lagging indicators. Example, employment and inflation, which can delay actions. Now, some people think Powell not cutting rates is a political move. I'm not quite sure about that, but there's that argument as well. So why does the Fed usually cut rates? Well, if the economic data shows slowing growth, also rising unemployment, or they think a recession is coming and they want to cut rates to avert a recession. So some argue that if they cut rates, it means that the market or the economy is doing horribly, right? So there's that argument as well. Not cutting rates is actually a good thing because it means the economy is doing good or doing well, right? So it's one of those things where if he cuts rates, it could actually signal to the economy that things are doing poorly. The markets could tank because they're like, oh my gosh, the Fed only cuts rates if they need to. Therefore, we need to sell because we're scared. What the Fed does can have an inverse or a temporarily inverse reaction to what it actually means long term. So it's all very complicated, lots of levers being pulled. So what's going to happen in the short term? Well, nobody really knows, but Bitcoin's quarterly returns, like I shared in a previous video, Q3, they suck. 6% for the quarter for Q3, and the other quarters all above 26%, Q4 being the biggest, meaning 85%. And Ethereum, the best quarter for ETH is going to be 77%. So I expect Bitcoin to make a decision, to make a move very shortly. I expect Bitcoin to decide what it's going to do pretty soon. I don't expect us to be chilling in this $103,000 zone for the next month. I think we're going to see a decided breakout to the downside, which is what I would put money on. I'm not a bear. I have no shorts. I'm not trying to short the market at all. But I have a feeling we're going to do a little bit of consolidating, and then we're going to see just this enormous blast off to all-time highs, like what Mike Novogratz said, well into the $120,000, $130,000 range, and eventually moving towards hitting gold's market cap, which we still have a long, long way to go for that. And if I were to show you this chart, this is Bitcoin's year-to-date ROI. How well has Bitcoin done this year? You would say it looks like it's on par to basically do what it did the last two post-halving years, 2021 and 2017. It doesn't look any different, right? We started the year higher, we came down below, and now we are matching or very close to matching what we did in 2021. So for a lot of people holding Bitcoin, this is like not a big deal, right? We are seeing a chart that looks very, very similar to the previous post-halving years. In 2017, Bitcoin did insane things and went up 19x. I don't think we're going to do that. We usually have diminishing returns, but then again, we are seeing nations and companies and, massive institutions get into Bitcoin this cycle. So maybe we can end up here. Maybe we can end up in a 4 to 5x ROI for the cycle, or some argue that maybe the 4-year cycles are over. And I should probably make a whole video on that regarding why or why not the whole 4-year cycle is over. Because if institutions like MicroStrategy and many others, and like Saudi Arabia and all these countries are buying billions and billions of dollars of Bitcoin, maybe the 4-year cycle is over. We'll see. And last thing, if you are a professional trader and want to grab some insanely large sign-up bonuses on first-time deposits, you can do so over on BTCC using my link below. And finally, guys, if you're thinking about heading to Vegas and you haven't gotten your ticket, you can do so using my link below, May 27th to the 29th at the Venetian Hotel. And I'll include the link to that below, where you're going to get a 10% off coupon, which is automatically applied if you use my link. So guys, that is it for the video. I will keep you guys posted on all these charts. What's going on with the Fear and Greed Index? What's going on with Bitcoin dominance? What's going on with the price of Bitcoin? Everything, including altcoins as well. I think we're going to see a solid altcoin season, way more than we just saw for like a week a few days ago, right? I think there's going to be a solid altcoin rally that's going to sustain months and months, but it may have to wait on what happens with the Fed. It may have to wait on external factors. And like I showed in the video, right now, institutions are the ones that are the biggest buyers. And for the most part, they are buying Bitcoin. But I do think that as the price of Bitcoin goes up, retail is going to come back. They're going to get re-excited. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, Bitcoin's at $150,000. I'm going to ape into Dogecoin or meme coins or everything, right? I do think that is going to happen. So I'll keep you guys posted. Make sure to subscribe, guys. Until next time, talk with you soon, and bye for now.